Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're coming in from YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. You can also sign up there. The first hour is general discussion about media and virtual production. Second hour is usually something we'd like to spend a little more time on. Today, we don't broadcast this, but at 8 o'clock, we'll have a discussion about education that'll go about an hour and a half. So it's the second hour and a half. And then at 11 o'clock, we'll turn the broadcast back on, and we will start a cooking project, savory pancakes. I'm all set up. My cameras are all there. My lights are on. I've got all the ingredients. So anyway, Damayanti Gajar will be joining us again to talk about how to do that. And I highly recommend checking it out. It's a pretty slick little process. And then at noon, of course, we return to the Belfast method, and that is going to be with our ode Todd Reynolds. We'll be going to his house and taking over his space and watching him make some great music for us. And by the way, if you haven't, I've said it a couple times this week, but if you look at Here and Now on Tuesday, and I think you can find the link on my Twitter, the Belfast method was highlighted in an NPR show, so it's kind of cool. So anyway, I think that's it. Now we're going to hand it off to our host, Emily Russo.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad to be back, and I'm excited for today, as always, to answer some of these questions. Remember, if you have a question, to go into Mukana and drop it in there and vote on those questions. Really important for us to figure out who we answer and who gets left behind. Not intentionally, but if we run out of time. All right, let's go ahead and start with our first question.
And Chris Fenwick from California asks, Alex, how do you feel about the panel discussion last night on the Final Cut Summit?
And this is a little awkward, but Chris first and then Alex.
Yeah, you should. I yield my time to the gentleman from Novato.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought we had a good time with it. We talked about the future of media, or our opinions about the future of media, and I think that the fact that I'm in this group and we talk about it every day, all day, left me a little bit more comfortable with the conversation than we've dealt with most of the things that we've talked about, most of the things that we talked about there. But it was great to have Justine and Colleen Pendergrass and Dato and so everyone there, it was good. So I thought there was a lot of good coverage. I think it was actually a pretty interesting conversation. I thought that Colleen said one thing that was super interesting.
What was it?
She was talking about media, and she said, "Yeah, you would need a platform for that." I was like, I was like, oh. So anyway, that's the only thing I remember from the whole thing she said. All the things she said, I just was like, hello. I noticed something there. So
what was interesting is I was watching the clock, and I was like, I knew you had some models to show.
Yeah.
So I had a question, and I was even texting Frederick, hey, you should ask Alex this question. And I didn't realize you guys had 90 minutes. So I was unrealistically panicking.
Well, and if I had known we were the last one, I think we could have gone even long. Maybe they told Frederick to stop or whatever, but we were just getting into the questions. As someone who works in, we all are on a show that are driven by questions. I felt like talking about when I was talking about interactive media, I was like, it's really weird to talk about audience interaction when we haven't interacted with the audience at all. So I thought that was a little odd. Yeah. It was a fun conversation, though. I thought, again, I'm so used to our conversation that I kind of was just waiting. I was scanning the questions going, oh, that's a good question. Oh, I'm ready to do that. And it just never got to them because I was ready to jump into the questions at, 5:15. So anyway, that's all I got.
Chris brought up my point. I was interested to know if you brought up the fishy models and talked about USDZ.
I did. I finally just forced the subject. I was just like, I don't want to not. I think I just put it in there somewhere. I just was like, I'm shoving this in here because people. And part of it is that there was a conversation I had with someone connected to the conference, and I had suggested that I do an hour on USDZ. Get Chris in and really let's walk through how to do this. Because that's what people don't know is how to create the models and how to generate USDZ. And I was like, it's great for Mark Spencer because he's brilliant. And I've learned so much from him to talk about how to take the USDZ and get it into Final Cut. But how do we get an object into USDZ is the part that's missing for everyone, which is why no one's using it. And so I suggested it and they were like, is anyone really using that? Does that really matter? And I'm like, like it was just because I was like, you have no idea what's coming to you. There's no idea like what's coming down the path here. And so I mean, USDZ is going to be a big deal next year, and it was an opportunity for us to be ahead of it. Like to give people something like it. A lot of this is just how to do better with Final Cut stuff that we already know how to do. This was an opportunity to go, hey, here's how to prep for the future for a moment. For 1 hour, and like I couldn't get it scheduled, so I was just like, well, I at least want to show people what to be excited about. So, and we'll do it ourselves. We've already done it, so that's why we did the other hour was to kind of walk through that.
Fenwick,
I think you missed one thing though. I think, and I know you showed the photograph of the thing next to the real thing on the desk, but you should have
shown it in the phone.
Picked up your phone, wired your phone in and say, now here's the thing.
I thought about it. The problem was I had stripped out all of those cables so that I could do the cooking thing today. And so when I was like 5 minutes before that we were getting ready. I was like, oh, I'm gonna show it on the phone. And I looked over and I was like, oh, the cables are gone. Like, because I always have a cable there to show it from the phone. Like I always have a cable hanging out here just to do phone stuff. And I it was the one, like literally an hour before I had torn it out and put it over in the kitchen and rigged it in. And so, so I totally agree with you. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Guy Cochran from Seattle asks, what is the day rate of a technical director or TD?
John.
Mr. Owl. Now, this is an interesting question because I have a spreadsheet in front of me where I've got listed all of the associated costs for an event we did this week, Tuesday, Wednesday. And the problem is our TDs do more than TD. So they're TDs, they're IT guys, and they're A1s. And so we use 2 of them for every show. And we have had them go down. Almost every show we've done, there's been a problem with one of the primary TDs, and the secondary TD had to take over seamlessly. But in the range of 600 to 1,000 a day is what they're getting from us.
Chris?
Yeah, I would say the day rate is exactly what you can get out of somebody. There's certain in bigger not markets but bigger sectors, like say sports. The numbers are pretty worked in, and I'll apologize. I haven't done it in about 30 years, but I know I would. Actually, I won't even say what I was making 30 years ago, but I think it was about $300 or $350 a day. But you get as much as you can get, and being unique and being a bit of a personal salesman is part of what it takes to do, but I don't think there's any like standard rates.
Alex?
I think there's also a distinction between technical director and director. So there's so the technical director I think is 600 to 1,000. And now a lot of us stack both of them together. And some of our best technical directors are probably in the 800 to 1,000 range. Is kind of that is pretty average range for that. But they are 1,000 shows. Like at $800 to $1,000 per unit, per day per person. I expect 1,000 shows under your belt. Like, so if you're starting, I expect $400, $500, and that's like a little show that we're going to have fun with. So it just depends on where people are in that cycle. Once you move to directors, that number can get much larger. And we've paid, and usually it's a client that says, this is the director that has to cut this thing, or, something like that. So we've gotten into the 2,000 to 5,000 a day range, for a specific director. Have they been any better? Not really. So if and now what I will say is that a TD plus director is almost always better than a TD/director, because especially on a more complex show, you need people to be thinking. You need a technical person thinking about it and a creative person watching it. And if you look at a big sports show like a football game, college or pro football game, you've got a producer who's looking ahead at things. You've got a director that's calling it. You've got a TD that's figuring out what to do, and then you've got a team of 100 people that all have done this before and all know what they're being asked to do, and that's part of what makes all of that work. So it's just a matter of how big the scale is.
Mitchell?
In person or remotely? Do you think there's a difference in the pricing there, Alex?
We don't pay any difference. What we save is that I don't have to fly my TD in. So I save 2 days of travel. Like some of my TDs are basically it's their day rate to travel or to work. It doesn't matter to them. It's just and so at that rate, if I have a 1-day show, I'm paying 3 days, for them, unless I can fly them in the morning of and fly them out the night of, which is very unrealistic most of the time. So you're looking at you either fly them in, at least you give up at least 1 day, if not 2 days of time. So I get that money back, or my client gets it back because we do it remotely. I don't. People have to be pretty set up for me to hire them remotely. I know Nate comes in from his office, which is got a commercial, power and broadband. I think dual broadband and so on and so forth. And Nate's probably the one that I use remotely as much as I do. Now, to back that up, I often have Kevin Maher doing something else, like a technical director from a tech perspective on site. Like when we do it at the office, he's doing something else. If something happened with Nate's connection, Kevin could just, sit down and run the show. So it's just, and having, to what John was talking about, having different people having a primary role, but potentially a secondary role is a great way to have redundancy kind of built into the system without adding cost to the project.
Chris.
For about 20 years, I've been saying that there will be a day when you hire a person to do a job and producers will just look at you with contempt if you try to charge them extra for, at the time I was talking about editors, for your computer. Like, what? You don't have a laptop with you? Why can't you just use yours? And we're kind of at that way. I mean, if you look at what we're asking people to do from their homes, like, well, do you have one of those? Yeah. Okay. Well, we need that. And it's amazing. You have to think about that with the day rate thing is usually in the before times, as Carmi likes to say, we were just getting a guy and then here's your desk, go to work. And now, those people, you're going to need something to tie into Unity and you're going to need some monitors to watch what's going on. And we're expecting a lot of extra stuff from people.
I wish my Chris was here because that's what he's doing now. And it's interesting. Alex?
Yeah, my answer to that would be maybe. I think that what we're doing with Office Hours 2.0 is changing that pretty quickly. Where, I think the future for us, I don't know what the future of the world, for everybody, all production is. The future for us is that we're going to build interfaces and comms and everything else that are bespoke for a given set of kinds of shows. So eventually, Hasmukh show, the Belfast method, the Mobley process, all of those things are going to be an interface inside of Universe or something like that we design. We put the buttons in where they need to be. We put the comms in where they need to be. We figure all of those things out. All of that's whether the hardware is in the cloud or not, the controls are in the cloud. And so now you end up with that interface can be run by anybody without any hardware. They're literally opening up opening this thing up, opening up Zoom and just starting to click on a screen and possibly tie it into Stream Deck. But the point is that I think that is where the more I see what Andy's doing and Jonathan's doing, the more I see that there's an opportunity for that. Now that works with regular shows. It doesn't, the one-offs have to fit. Now I think that we could eventually build templates like this is the template. Oh, you want to add comms? We add that module. Oh, you want this? We add that module. And so you can add these in to build out that, and then you can very quickly have someone design it. Now the cool thing is that we'll be hiring people to design these interfaces. Like there'll be people who that just their job is to build the interface for the client and figure out, oh, you really want the button here? And if the client wants to change it, they pay $300 to have something moved around because they're doing something. But I think that especially as we move into content, we move away from one-off events, which are a waste of money, and move into ongoing weekly events, monthly events, daily events by clients. Being able to design that interface is going to be key. And then they just keep refining it to where they can have anyone in their office, in their semi-technical crew, cutting the show, and they're thinking about it creatively, not technically.
All right, next question.
Emily Russo from Nashville, Tennessee asks, any reason not to update to Monterey on the M1 Mac Mini or an Intel i7 MacBook Pro?
Yeah, I would think there was a little bit of a problem with Apple, and they were bricking old Intel computers. And they fixed that in the update, in the loader so that it doesn't brick the computers anymore. But generally speaking, I would wait for the 0.1 or 0.2 update. I'm waiting for the 0.2 update. 0.1, they kind of fix all the stuff that they broke. And then 0.2 is pretty solid from there on out. If you're in the audio world and using a lot of audio plugins, Emily, I wouldn't update yet. But if you're not using a lot of audio plugins, you could risk it. But I don't know necessarily if I would put it on a production machine yet till the 0.2. Chris?
Yeah, thank you. Chris?
Yeah. So Emily, I have 3 machines in my workflow here. I have a 1-year-old Mac Mini M1. I put Monterey on it day 1, not a problem. I have a 4-year-old iMac Pro that I'm sitting in front of. I put Monterey on it day 1, no problem. And I have a 5-year-old laptop. I put Monterey on it day 1, and I haven't any problems with any of them. The plugin thing is a possibility, but in terms of just general use, they're working fine.
Good to know. All right, next question.
The next question is from Douglas Carmichael, who asks, what is the least expensive, simplest to configure solution to connect 4 to 6 XLR microphones to a laptop using USB input for a non-technical meeting run by a local rural select board?
Tim?
Yeah, so you said the cheapest, so I found a pretty cheap solution, and that is just a Behringer 4-channel, or what it's 4 USB ins and some 4 cheap Behringer mics. The total is like $188. That is about as cheap as you can get. You do have to add the mic cables, but it will get you a USB interface into the computer itself.
John?
Tim, I thought it, and it came out your mouth.
All right, next question.
Thank you, John.
The next question is from Chris Fenwick of California, who asks, how can I save the camera settings on the ATEM software?
Alex?
You're perfectly in sync.
Thank you. So you were I thought it did save them. It saves what it wants to tell them. Yeah, it does.
So I found the setting. I was just completely stupid. As it turns out, there's a thing called save. Yeah. And when you save, you get this dialog box, and you can choose all the different things that you want to save with that setting. And instead of open, they call it restore. So underneath the edit menu, it says restore. But when I saw this dialog box, I felt really, really dumb.
Yeah, if I have that bug that you see when Zoom can't see the ATEM switcher every once in a while, like it just turns gray. First thing I do is very carefully save my my ATEM, like wherever I was. Let's remember this, and then I turn it off, and then bring it back up.
All right, next question.
The next question is from Tim Home of San Lorenzo, and his question is, how do you implement NDI into your workflow?
Guy?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. Cameras would be the given, like this is an NDI camera behind me, and with that on the network, we can control. Right now you see it has a green light on it, so that tells me that it's in preview mode, so that's the tally light that'll get controlled over NDI. So when it's red, that means it's hot, so that's the active camera. We use it for screen capture, so if you open up like vMix desktop capture on a presenter's laptop, we can, over NDI, grab their screen. We can also KVM and control their screen or their whole computer. In the cloud, we use it to pull SRT feeds. So we use something called SRT Mini Server, and that converts SRT to NDI. And so we'll use that as what's called a contribution machine. You can use it on the same machine, but for protection, we like to put feeds coming in on one machine and then use our cutting machine just solo. Another way is graphics. We use Alpha channel with NDI for with new Blue Titler. I can set up hotkeys and I can just bang lower thirds in on a graphics machine, and they pop in, and the TD can choose to take them or not. And then Zoom NDI. We use Zoom NDI to grab contributors, just like in this meeting. We can just pull everybody out. That machine does need to be a co-host, and that machine only will pull three feeds. But yeah, lots of ways to use NDI.
John?
Been using the NDI virtual cam driver on the OBS now for over a year and change before they came out with the virtual cam driver for Mac, which was within the last 6 months. But I like the NDI version because I can transmit between all of my machines on my LAN. I also have one of the original NDI HX cameras, which isn't that great, but I still have that one laying around. And then the mobile phone, the HX driver for the mobile phone is super handy as well.
Chris?
Yeah, that's what I was going to that's what I was going to show too. I use this all the time to be able to show stuff from my phone, and it's wireless and it goes NDI into OBS.
All right, next question.
The next question is also from Tim Home, and it is, can we discuss and or review the tutorial video from Hasmukh regarding looking good in an online meeting? And he includes the link.
John?
I found this video yesterday, and it's outstanding. It's, we really like the Jeff video, but this one is super highly produced with, I don't know if he used After Effects or Motion, but he's got motion graphics on all of it, and all the videos are very well produced. It's outstanding. Great work, Hasmukh.
Yeah, it looks really good. Alex?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I probably picked the pace up a little bit. I have to admit, in YouTube, there's a really short attention span. I think that you could probably cut this thing to about 3 minutes with the same content. It's just a matter of getting through that content a little bit faster. The quality of it, I think, is great. So what the content's there is really highly produced, and I think it's a really good quality. I only got to skip through it because I just saw it here when the question came up, so I just looked through it. And I think that pacing inside of YouTube, and I think that part of that has to do with the fact that I watch a lot more TikTok than I watch YouTube. So I think I'm used to a screaming pace where 3 minutes is like, with a TikTok, 3 minutes you're like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? And so I would think about cutting it just faster. I think that that's the only thing that I would do. But probably use less text. I think that overall, I think it looks great. I think that we want to stay away from things that feel like a presentation and just get into and really think about broadcast graphics. As it starts to look, as we start to look at it, we want to make sure that we can read some of that smaller text on a phone. And I'm not sure with some of the smaller text that I saw there, I wasn't sure that that would be readable on a standard phone easily. So those are the things that I would kind of think about. I think that it's a great step forward, and I think that all the pieces are there. I would just kind of reorganize them just a little bit and tighten them up.
Chris?
Yeah, I think it'll work. It'll read fine on a phone as long as you're on that new iPhone 15 with the 27-inch display. What I would do, and this is kind of interesting because it's sort of an educational thing, is I would start in the first 15 seconds, 10 seconds saying, you could look and sound like this, or you could look and sound like this guy. Let me show you how. And that way you've set the expectation of what this video is going to be about, and then we go to town and crank through all the steps.
I agree. All right, let's go to the next question.
The next question is from Guy Cochran in Seattle, and he asks, comparatively, how large is the sensor on the new Ursa Broadcast G2 compared to a Pocket 6K?
Alex?
I believe the new one's 2/3 inch. Is the broadcast is 2/3 inch chip because that's what they have to. As a broadcast, they're not. So, Guy, it's a Super 35.
It's exactly the same size. So
Really?
yesterday, I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, here's
I
the
was completely
website.
wrong yesterday.
So,
That's what I get for talking about something out of my without watching the whole piece.
yeah, it's exactly the 23.10 by 1299 Super 35, and then you go to the Ursa Broadcast. This is the 3995 camera that is shipping now. They're in the U.S. It's not blowing smoke. These will be here at least in our facility.
What are they
in a
doing
week.
with the B4?
The B4 is attached, it's installed, but also included in the box is the EF mount. So in the box, and now you have servo control as well. So in the side there, you get
Does
cool
it
stuff.
does it take PL as well?
It can with the adapter, so you can buy another adapter that you can put the
So
PL mount.
they've just quietly dropped the price of the Mini. Like, is there anything different? Is there anything the Mini has that this doesn't have at this point?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so they
and you do actually get the top handle now is included, which is crazy because the top handle and the shoulder, this down below used to be an additional piece that you had to purchase, and now that's all in the box for $39.95. So the mount is B4.
So it's really $34.99, right? I mean, it's like when you think about the price of those pieces.
Yep. And they also created a new microphone mount that's I can't remember how much it was, but that'll attach. And then there's some new software that's, everybody should watch the video. The ending is pretty crazy as to what you can do with this now remotely. You can control, if you have a servo zoom, you can control that servo zoom remotely through the streaming bridge. You can shade it remotely. So all you need, no VPN, just a streaming bridge, and you can talk to this camera through Ethernet. So there's a USB to Ethernet adapter you can get for $10 on Amazon. Plug that in and you're streaming. It's got YouTube settings to. It's pretty crazy. You guys got to watch the video. They quietly dropped a lot of information in that video for not making a big fuss about it, but it's a cool camera for $39.95. I have to say.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
So, Alex, considering you missed this very important fact, do you think there's a market in us producing TikTok videos for Blackmagic? So you would actually pick up on these bits of information because you said you prefer watching TikTok.
I do prefer watching TikTok. Yeah, the problem that I love that Blackmagic puts out those things. There's not enough density in Blackmagic's keynotes. It drives me a little nuts. Like he just takes so long to get to the point. And so I can't, I think Apple's are about the right pace as far as there's a lot more production value. But I just feel like, I guess the problem is that I heard that there was a keynote, and because we didn't know there was if we had known that there was a keynote, it's fun to watch a slow keynote with all of us, right? Because we can sit here and chew on it and talk about it and everything else. Because I didn't even know I just wasn't paying attention. I didn't know that there was a keynote going on. We didn't do the talk along, and there's no way without this group I would watch a keynote. I just wait for the highlights. If I didn't have something to, even with the Apple ones, I'd probably just wait for the highlight reel. So I think people estimate the need for those things. But the Blackmagic specifically, because they really decide they really want to do it live. Live to tape, but they want to do it at a live. Grant really likes live pacing, and I hate it. So I don't want to sit through that. So I just needed more information, more highlights, and now we have them. See, I didn't have to watch it. Now I understand. So.
All right, next question.
George Butters from Halifax asks for any thoughts on the NS1 Noise Suppressor.
Michael.
Yeah, the NS1 is a really nice plugin. It works really great, and it's on sale for $29 now. But I would also take a look at the WNS Noise Suppressor by Waves. It's normally $500, but it's on sale for $38.99, 92% off. And it has a little more features that you can dial in the noise suppression. And for $8 or $9 more, I think you would really appreciate the WNS over the long haul.
All right, thank you. All right, next question.
John Preto from Las Vegas, Nevada asks, what technology would you use on Zoom if you wanted to track motion a green screen live on a virtual set?
Oh, Alex.
I'd use the telemetry data from the Panasonic 150. The Panasonic will feed its position and rotate. Well, it'll feed its rotational data back. That's the best way to. And then after that, you're looking at things like Stipe and you can't do it over Zoom. There's not enough data there because you want to track that data at a higher frame rate than what it's sending over Zoom. So preferably what you want to do is oversample that tracking data if you can.
So there's some great, virtual sets that have great dolly move-ins.
Yeah.
And it would be nice for those for when I do screen sharing on here to track all that live on with the chroma keyed signal in.
Do you want to actually track a camera on a jib, or do you want to create something that looks like you're tracking on a camera?
Yes, on a jib? Looks like.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's a simpler problem in the sense that that's an Unreal, and what you need to do is you need to cut yourself out and put yourself on a card. So in Unreal at that point, if you wanted to do that kind of push in, and Nick has shown some of that, you're basically going to take Nick uses, I think, an NDI. I think he pays the price for that in the band, because the bandwidth on NDI, even at its highest level, is not as high as you want for green screen. So what you want is to get either a 444 or a 422 signal. Especially if you're doing 1080p, I would try to get a 4K signal in and try to key it. If you're asking for the best way to do that, it's to use an Ultimat. So you pass it through an Ultimat Ultimat 12 at 4K, key that, and then pass the key fill, because it'll send in now the video, and it will send the mat that it derives into your switcher. Now not in your switcher, but into your computer that has Unreal, and eventually Unity. I mean, now that Weta bought Unity, Unity bought Weta Digital, Unity and Epic within a year will be the same. I mean, as far as quality goes. Anyway, you pass that in, you put it on a card, and now you have your whole 3D scene, and you can do this. You can do a push in. The main thing is the axis. So as long as you don't move about 15%, 15 degrees around, you can come into a card and no one will know. It's when you go up too high that you see card. You just want to do it really subtly, and then you can totally push in on cards, to make that work. And the rest of the scene's all 3D. You're just sitting at, its desk, so you'll see all the other parallax that you need with everything else. Having the thing, whatever's behind that card, be a little further away than you normally would, will help exaggerate the parallax between you and the background, which will make up for the fact that there's no parallax between your nose and your ear. You won't notice that as long as there's a lot of parallax behind you. But that's the best way to do it, because the Ultimat is that the keyer inside of the ATEM is great, like the best keyer out there for a piece of hardware, except for the Ultimat. The Ultimat keyer is, you can key water and glass. It's unbelievable. So I would highly recommend putting that piece of hardware in. I used to own the 11, and the 12 jumped. I mean, it was a huge jump from the 11 to the 12, and they cut the price in half. Not that I'm bitter.
All right, next question.
Chris Taylor from Carlsbad, California, has a Ruthless review question. For those panelists with the standard grey/blue backgrounds, how are you preventing shadows from front lighting? Softboxes, angles?
Alex?
Softboxes and angles. That's exactly. I mean, it's they're up here, so the shadows are going down. So the shadows are hitting, but they're just hitting really, really low on the gray screen below what you can actually see.
Sorry, Guy.
Yeah, that's it, along with an egg crate on it. So if I turn off that light, you can see now how punchy that blue is. Before today, this was getting contaminated by that light. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on, and you can see how much it actually still is getting pretty. It should be like a blue. So now it's just a matter of getting this thing positioned even better than how it's positioned now, because it's obviously spilling in there and making it more of a purple color than a blue. But it's a great question, because it's complicated. I'm gonna need some flags, but I'm in the hallway of my home, and I just put this thing on, and my son came out of his room and said, "That's excessive," because you could see this thing's monstrous. If you look, this is an Aperture P300. It's a big light. It's only running at like 40% of what it's capable of too.
Nothing like blinding the kids first thing in the morning. All right, next question.
The next question is from James Hutchinson in Dublin, Ireland, and he asks, did you catch the end of the Blackmagic Design Ursa announcement? They showed the Ursa streaming to a BMD Steaming Bridge at a remote location with full remote camera control for zoom, focus, and color. Is this cool or what?
Guy?
Yeah, it's totally freaking cool. It's amazing. Like, I'm surprised more of us didn't see this, because when I saw it kind of went by, from the news cycles. It just kind of was a non-starter. But then when I watched it, I about fell out of my chair when I saw it. I think it's really cool to be able to control things, especially zoom. There's something called a sal ray pan and tilt head that now I'm looking at that can hold that camera. So now if we can just get the physical moves of the camera, now we've got a large sensor camera with the ability to not only shade it, but also move it into the position that we want. So the future looks really bright for high quality hybrid or virtual events. So cool stuff.
Very cool. All right, next question.
The next question is from Guy Cochran in Seattle. With a streaming bridge in San Francisco and an Ursa Broadcast G2 in Belfast, could I control zoom, focus, exposure, and shading without any special VPN?
Alex.
I guess that he threw it to himself, but I intercepted it. Yeah, I just jumped right in front. Yes, the answer is yes. We should now. We just need to get a hold of a G2 and experiment with it. When are you going to get one in the office, Guy?
I'll have one next week. So they said 7 days from yesterday. So whatever that equals, I guess next Friday.
Okay. Awesome. Can't wait for us to. Well, I think that there's a lab in after hours that's wanting to happen. Maybe even a second hour. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Cool. Next question.
Tim Peters in, I'm going to have a go at this one. Tehachapi, California. Any way to control a Logitech Brio across a network when using it in Teams?
Chris.
I have no idea, but I got to say, Tim, I drove through Tehachapi on my way to Preto's house last month, and beautiful scenery. So I don't think so. I don't know that Teams has introduced any of the remote camera control like Zoom does. But when I do the remote camera control in Zoom, it blows people away. It's really fun.
All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, John mentioned that his TDs also act as A1s. From my experience with a singer-songwriter on a Belfast show with Mickey, mixing audio takes one's full attention. Wouldn't it be negligent to stack both responsibilities on one person?
Alex.
I think it depends on the show. If you're mixing a bunch of instruments together, you need an A1. Like that's all they're doing. If you're mixing a round table where people are talking to each other, I mean, most of our shows have an A1, but do you actually need one? A lot of times we cross-pollinate that, where we have somebody, one person managing audio, one person managing TD, both of them go back and forth. But it's not that complicated if all they're doing is talking.
All right, next question.
Tony Mobley from Newnan, Georgia asks, can Alex talk about how Office Hours 2.0 will work with Music Professional coming in the second hour?
You're up first.
Oh,
Tony.
sorry, Tony.
Well, I just wanted to say I wanted to wait until Tuesday, and then I decided, well, no, I'm not going to hold that. I'm just going to go ahead and ask now.
Yeah. So, I mean, my vision eventually, I don't know what will happen, but what I want to have happen, or what we're going to try to get done, is to build kits that we send to the artists that give us a lot more control. I think we'll never get the kind of quality that we're looking for by just having them have whatever they have when we go to it. So, but the goal is, how do we design a kit? And I design a lot of these kits, so it's not that it's a very doable thing. Is that, how do we design a kit that allows us to really completely control it? So it might be sending all of their signals over Unity Connect, and I may have control over the camera. I may have control over the DMX lighting. All of those things are things that we want to have control over, so that they just kind of set something up that's relatively simple. It's probably more complex than they're used to. It's what we do, but it looks and sounds amazing, and most importantly, it records everything locally. So we have a great interactive experience with the artist during Zoom, but then we could post something later that is unbelievable. Like that's truly a concert, and that our quality keeps on cutting back in. And of course, we have pretty good quality here. And if we got to a point where we could double end a lot of this stuff, we could end up with even a better experience, where you could have these incredible shows that come out in post that are based on that conversation that we had with them. But I think that there's some real opportunities there. But I think that a kit that allows us to do that will be the key. I'm a little upset that Behringer got rid of the X32 core. I kind of have been trying to figure out if I can buy ones, because that's really what we need, is a Dante only X32. Like, I don't need all the analog inputs. But anyway, so we're going to kind of keep going down that path. I've been holding off on having more musical artists and working with Richard on the Belfast method, and Todd, and people who are willing to experiment with us, because what we're doing there is trying to figure out what that's going to look like.
Next question.
Alex Fordy-Gulner from London in the UK wants a ruthless review of yesterday's Future Focused panel at the Final Cut Summit, and he shares the link.
And Alex?
I thought doing the announcements behind with at first without somebody and then with somebody over top of it was a little rough. I thought that everyone was pretty well lit, and of course Justine's setup was the best looking of all of them. I mean, if you look at the camera, the lighting, everything was at a different level than the rest of us. My shot was too low. I put a teleprompter back in here, and I haven't cut. You can see I'm too low right now too, and it's harder for me to adjust. So I'm gonna but so Justine just crushed it. If you look at she's got that all kind of really set up perfectly, in that area. So anyway, but overall, I thought, I think only one person was using there we go. That was the digital background, which I don't think worked very well. Especially the disadvantage that you have is that there was a suggestion to use digital backgrounds for everyone, and only one person did. It kind of put them at a disadvantage because everybody else looked better.
All right. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Newnan, Georgia, says, I'm looking at YouTube today and the image quality is not good. Is that on my end?
Anyone want to weigh in on that, Alex?
I think it looks, for me, going to it right now, it looks as good as it ever does. It's still 720p, but it's not breaking up or anything else. I see it as the same quality I've seen before. So I wouldn't say great, but I wouldn't say it's any more broken than any other day.
Chris?
If during the week you were watching the 2.0, that would be a totally different quality, though.
Yes, the 2.0 is definitely looking pretty good.
You've been spoiled, Tony.
Yeah, it's starting to get pretty sharp. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, would lighting design tools like Vectorworks also compute power requirements for a specific lighting design?
Alex?
It should. Vectorworks should do that. So you should be able to do that calculation. I haven't done it myself, but I know that we've worked with lighting designers that give us back all those requirements, and they're using Vectorworks, and I believe that they're using it to calculate it.
All right. Next question.
The next question is from Mitchell Hill in Wilmington, Delaware, and he asks, last night on Bill Maher's Politically Incorrect Venture Capitalist and Shark Tank, co-host Kevin O'Leary said more people prefer to work from home and that there is an increased demand for animators and videographers. Is he correct?
Alex?
So I think that, I didn't see it, so I would say that I think that more people means an increase over what previously was there. Not that more people want to work from home than want to go to work. Like, I just want to be careful of how we say that, because if people say, "Oh, you don't ever," there's a lot of people that actually want to go back to work, and that's true. They have kid issues. They have kids. They want to get out of the house. They didn't. A lot of people, especially in the South Bay, didn't buy a house to live in it. Like, they bought a house so they could work at Google, or they bought a house so they could work at Facebook, and it's like a horrible little box that they pay like $5,000 a month for, and so they don't have a living condition that has them be at home all the time. So they don't want to be. I have a big, pretty big house and a yard and a pool and everything else. I don't ever need to leave. Like, I don't, So it's a different experience, for different people. I would say about 30%. Don't want to go back. That's what we're seeing right now. It's 30% don't want to send their kids to school. 30% don't want to go back. It's 40% are kind of like in this group of people that have now been freed of the need to do all the other things that they had to do before. As far as whether that people need more videographers and animators, we're about to move into the golden age of content. Not the golden age for people that are in broadcast right now. This is going to be a horror show for them, because the market is about to explode, but it's going to explode in every different direction all at the same time. What will contain the market and keep it from growing and potentially kill it is lack of content, a lack of talent. So the lack of people able to do it, because the market is going to explode for $35 to $50 an hour. not for 150. And so, so that it's going, but can you find people that can work inside of that number? And a lot of us have seen this coming for decades, but it's here, and it's about to just blow, if you can have enough people to do it, but we're millions of people short, maybe tens of millions short of what the demand is. And so we won't get the content. And then potentially that's what I believe that's why .bombs died or bombed, was because they ran out of people who knew how to do what they were doing. I mean, at first you had a bunch of specialists in 97, 98. By 99, you were taking a 6-week course and you're getting paid $70,000 a year. That was unsustainable. And so they just ran out of people that could do it. And we have that risk that we could run out of people to do it and have the whole thing, the bubble pop, not because there's not a demand for it, but because there's not a supply that can fulfill the demand's needs, and the demand moves somewhere else. So it was definitely a thought that I had when we started office hours.
Mitchell?
Need more people.
Alex, I think Bill Maher was channeling you last night when he was talking about the office, because one of the people said, well, when they want you to come back to the office, you're going to go back to the office. And Bill said, no, they're going to go work for somebody else that lets them work at home for all the reasons you just said. So it was that got my attention. And then the Shark Tank expert said, the big move for business is going to be, and it just came out of his mouth. He said, animation and videographers, people to shoot and create content. And I just fell right out of my bed because I didn't expect it to come from there on that particular show from that particular guy. But his context for the comment was that social media and content, not broadcast, was going to be the reason that there was going to demand for this, and good content is king. So I'm surprised to hear it coming from there.
Chris?
Yeah. So Mitchell, question is, those two statements seem very disconnected, except for what you just said there. Was he implying that because more people will want to be or will be working from home, that it will cause a need for video and videographers? I hate that word. Video people, or was that just a side thing? Oh, and by the way, we need more animators and camera people.
No, it was. He didn't specifically tie it to that, Chris, but he certainly said that more people are consuming content that's not broadcast related in more different ways through social media, and because of that, there would be a need for these people.
And do you think that, was he implying that need was going to grow because of the work from home thing, or just coincidentally at the same time?
I don't think you're going to get me to agree specifically that they said that. You'd have to rewatch the interview.
Yeah, I'll go watch it. It seemed like an odd correlation of statements.
I agree. And then when he brought up the animation and videographer, and I agreed, I hate that word, comment, I just fell off.
It almost sounds like a weatherman saying it's going to rain today, and I love Twinkies. They don't seem like they relate very much.
Nigel? We can't hear you.
This may be more of a Sunday morning conversation, but I would be aware of a bifurcation going on in the workforce, because the people that deliver your food to you don't get a chance to work from home. So there's a lot of people in this model that are still going to have to go to work. And I think sometimes we slightly run over them. I also think that working from home is not an employee issue, it's a management issue. And there are going to be lots of management teams that want their employees close to them.
All good points. All right, so that wraps up, because we went a little bit over and we want to give time to get the educators in. So that wraps up our first hour. We're going to go off to YouTube, say goodbye to everyone, and ask our educators